Good morning. Made it to Friday, February 16th. Hard to believe February is half over, already over half over. So, is this leap year? Is there 29 days this year? I can't remember. If it is, yep. All right. Well, cloudy, a little bit snowy today. Yes, it is. Okay, leap year. My sister-in-law, Tammy, has a birthday this year. All right. Yeah, are we supposed to get much snow out of this deal? Anyone know? I was kind of enjoying the warmer weather. Get a little whiny. Gets Dan. How is it in North Carolina today? It's probably like 70 degrees and crappie are biting. You wouldn't know. You work too much. Get the boat out. Go fishing. Enjoy your day. 1 to 2 inches. Okay. So we're not going to get much out of this thing then. All right. So just look out for a few hours yesterday. Tried to go fishing. Went fishing. Did not catch a thing. So I did become a little productive. I'm going to try my hand at worm farming. So I bought some night crawlers at Wally World. So these are probably Chinese night crawlers, right? So only used a couple of them, and I thought, well, you leave them in that little bitty container, or I don't know. Anyway, so Indiana 1 to 2 inches. You guys have been getting some snow out there, Randy. So. All right. Anyway, I'm going to try. So Teresa had this styrofoam container, so a bigger one, a little cooler like thing, and so I took it and put some old leaves in it and dirt and newspaper clippings and then more dirt and newspaper clippings and stuff like that. And so I put like 16 worms in there. I'm going to see if these things will live and start my own worm farm. So might as well do something productive. And besides, Bidenomics keeps going. We'll have something to eat. All right. Anyway, the liberal mindset just continues to boggle my mind, and it really is about control, all of it. The politicians of the day are such a joke. That Fani Willis gal in Georgia that is the prosecutor for Trump, what a joke that woman is. She had run on, her entire campaign was on integrity. And we see typical politician of the day, and so that's a joke. And then we have all kinds of people crying out for gun control because of the shooting in Kansas City. However, the one thing that they seem to forget is that 2 out of 3 of these were kids, juveniles, still supposed to be in high school. Legally cannot own a firearm. And so, what is the deal? So, anyway, so the mayor is saying we need to take guns out of everybody's hands. Well, hey, first of all, the people that stopped, these lunatics were, unarmed American citizens who took it upon themselves to tackle these nitwits and hold them down for the police officers. And so, and unarmed. And because law-abiding citizens didn't have their guns there. And so it's these morons that are breaking the laws, and they're going to continue to break the laws. And so please don't tell me that that you are actually running on this because you care about people and their safety. You do not care at all, Mr. Mayor, about the safety of your people. You care only about controlling them. That is it. And so shut up about how much you care about people. You do not care about anyone other than your own pocketbook. Oh, man. Enough of that. We're done with that. I'm done with the politician. I'm like really done with politicians. Like totally gone, finished with even the most local politicians. I have zero time for politicians. And if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk, right? And anyway, so moving on. So I'd moved into Leviticus today. And there are several offerings, but there are 5 main offerings in Leviticus. So I'm going to try to help you out with this. So if you're reading this, reading Leviticus, maybe this will help you understand some things in Leviticus also. And so there are 5 main offerings, and then there are several votive offerings. And the votive offerings are ones that when you make a vow, okay? And so they're kind of like the sub-points of the main offerings. And so we'll try to deal with them as we go to a little bit. But I don't want to get bogged down in this, but I think I need to preach this sometime on a Sunday, maybe a Sunday night or something, go through these. But I was reading in Leviticus chapters 1, 2, and 3 today. And the first 5 chapters of Leviticus will introduce those 5 main offerings that we have. And I wrote them down. We have the burnt offering in chapter 1. And the first 3 of these offerings are voluntary. And so not required, but they're voluntary. And there's some interesting things about them. It tells us that in the first one that when he brings a bullock or if he, and I think some of that, whether you bring a bullock, a sheep, or a lamb, or a dove, I think it all depends. Don't hold me to this, but I think a lot of it is economics. And so if you're broke, then you bring what you have, right? And so anyway, don't hold me to all of that. But anyway, in all of those, that they would have to put their hand upon the animal, and then they would kill the animal and then give it to the priest. And the priest then would take the blood. And I mean, you think about the blood of these animals, and it's interesting, isn't it? But so in the first one, then this is a burnt offering, and the burnt offering represents a total commitment and total surrender to God. And so, Joyce, I didn't read that part about, but if it's in that burnt offering, the first one, then that would probably be why. It's a voluntary offering. And so, in doing that, and so it represents a total surrender, and all of it had to be burnt. I mean, the entire animal was sacrificed, because you think about it, it's representing a total surrender to God. You're not keeping anything back, everything to God. Well, think about it in our lives today. We need to be totally surrendered to God. And in these challenging days, you better make certain that you're totally surrendered to God, right? So that's the burnt offering. And then the second one, which I think is interesting, is called a meat offering. However, it's the one offering that they don't offer meat. They use flour instead. And it's the only one that an animal is not killed in. And it also is a voluntary offering. And and here it's talking about, and the reason being is because it represents a living sacrifice. And so, first of all, the burnt offering, you're totally surrendered to God. Secondly, the meat offering, because the animal doesn't die, you are giving yourself to be a living sacrifice for God. Goes right along with Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. And so that would make sense why they use flour instead of using an animal. And then in Leviticus chapter 3, as I was reading, this is a peace offering. And this is talking about the fellowship that you have and the communion that you have with God. And so it was to a peace offering. And we are at peace with God whenever we are living for Him, right? And so all three of those are voluntary offerings that they made. Something that I think is interesting, and I don't know how to answer this yet. Dan, maybe you're on here. Randy, maybe you guys would know. What I wonder what these guys did that lived far away from the temple. And now I know with the tabernacle, when this is all developed now, they all camped around the tabernacle, so they had to come to that. And I know that there in Jerusalem, it's kind of the center, a big center part of Israel. So, but I wondered about those that made these sacrifices, after the temple was built. Did they have to come there all the time? Were there small tabernacles that were, I'm having a brain seizure on that, and I guess I never really gave it much thought before. If they had places where they could go and make those sacrifices in these tabernacles. So I don't know. I don't even know if they had tabernacles after the temple was built. Or did you just have to come back and make those sacrifices? I know it seemed like there was certain, I don't know if all 5 of these that they had to come back at certain times a year. Seemed like maybe there were 3 of these that, 3 feasts per year, they had to come back. So I was correct about the 3 feasts, but I wonder about that too, Dan. Maybe that's when they did these others too. So it would definitely, long walks might correct stupid behavior. Yes, and only the liberals didn't travel. You guys are a lot of help. Thank you. All right. Yes. These are the guys I run with. Yes. All right. So, and maybe that's what they did, is when they went back, they took care of them. Or maybe they were doing a whole lot of walking and not making much money because they were constantly going back and forth. So, all right. Those are good. So, chapter 3 was a peace offering. And then chapter 4, we had the sin offering. And the chapter 4 and chapter 5, the sin offering and the trespass offering were both required. You had to do that. I mean, you were, and that makes sense because we all sin and come short of the glory of God, right? And the sin offering was the payment for sin. And then the trespass offering was for particular sins that you had committed. And so, both of those were required because we know we all sin, right? And so anyway, maybe that will help you as we look at these, and in depth, you can see that every one of them will point you to the Messiah, to Jesus. And it's really powerful when you really study these things out. And some of it, I'm sorry, I just don't, a lot of it just has to be explained to me. But then after it's explained to me, then I'm like, oh, wow, I see that. And it's interesting, isn't it? So anyway, those are some of the things that I read in Leviticus. I don't want it to intimidate you as you read it, but let's try to see Jesus in all of that, right? And then I was reading on over, and I ticked everybody off yesterday pretty much, so I'm trying not to tick anybody off today, all right? We Baptists aren't perfect either, so so anyway, those that got mad at me yesterday, come on back. It'll be okay. And let's make up and let's keep moving forward, all right? So we'll get everything worked out when we get to heaven, all right? And you guys will apologize to me because you were wrong. And here, this reminds me, in Psalm 35, verses 27 and 28. Let them shout for joy and be glad that favor my righteous cause. Yea, let them say continually, let the Lord be magnified, which hath pleasure in the prosperity of his servant. And my tongue shall speak of thy righteousness and of thy praise all the day long. Here's something that's interesting. David writing this and saying, let those who are watching me and seeing God's hand of blessings upon me, let them praise God for his righteousness to a servant. You know, I think that we forget sometimes, and we are so careful and so cautious. And look, I think we ought to be dogmatic in doctrine, okay? And by that, there are certain things we're not going to give up. Yesterday, I hope you saw that, even though it might have made some people a little bit angry, but don't mess with the gospel. The gospel of Christ can't be changed, and the gospel of Christ, that his death, his burial, his resurrection, his ascension into heaven, that all of that was done for the sins of the world, and whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. That's the gospel. And so, you know, there are certain things that we are dogmatic on, and that is not going to change. And don't try to add anything to that. That's what saves us, is that and that only. And so we're dogmatic on that. But you know, we all are different, and we all have some different ideas on certain things, and we practice things differently, and we live our lives differently, and and we need to watch people, and if you see their feet heading in the right direction, then we ought to be their biggest cheerleader, and helping them, and loving them, and then encouraging them to see things differently. I mean, wasn't it Apollos? Was it Apollos that they had to take alongside and help correct some of his teaching that he was wrong in, and they took him aside, and then he was very powerful in preaching and teaching, and look, I'm not saying that as a church in you know, ecclesiastical separation, there is an ecclesiastical separation, okay? And we need to be distinctly who we are and stand on that. You know, these people that want to come in and say, well, they're non-denominational. No, they're not. No, they're not. They stand for something, and so stand for it. And quit trying to hide behind this big word non-denominationalism, and stand up and be who you are. And quit trying to hide. All they're doing is hiding behind that. They still make a stand for certain things. And so get over it and just, you know, wear your colors, all right? And so, but along with that, though, we do need to we can still be friendly, and we can still encourage each other, and we can praise the Lord when somebody is preaching the gospel. And we disagree with a lot of other things that they do, but and some aren't preaching the gospel, and we need to tell them, you don't preach the gospel. And so, but just because they preach the gospel, if they're different in a lot of their policies and a lot of their practices, they're not going to preach in my pulpit, and they wouldn't want me to preach in their pulpit. I hope that makes sense. And so we can be friends, but we're not going to share differing doctrines in our church family. It's just not the way it's going to happen. But we can still be a cheerleader to those that we see that God is blessing, and especially those in our own church family, those who are our brothers in Christ, those who are, and especially those who are walking as we are and seeing things as we do, you know, in like the independent Baptist circles. Then let's praise the Lord for them instead of being their biggest critics. You know, we're shooting ourselves in the foot all along the way, and let's be careful with that. And you know, there's such a separation even in our independent fundamental Baptist circles. You know, if you went to this school, you're different. This school different, or this policy is different. This policy is different. Come on, people. You know what? I appreciate everybody's stands that they take, but some of those, let's make sure that it's just not something that I don't know, your school taught you, and you're more worried about and concerned about impressing your school than you are God. And let's be careful of those things. All right. So there we go. I probably ticked off the Baptists today. Just can't help it. It's in my nature. All right. Last thing. Proverbs chapter 9. Look at this. Verses 13 through 18. And this is what it says. It says, a foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. For she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city, to call passengers who go right on their ways. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. And as for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. Oh yeah, but it'll come back to bite you guys. But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. And here we go. Maybe I do tick people off, but and I need to look at it for myself. But there are pictures of Taylor Swift, and when she first started out, this young innocent type of girl, and the songs that she had, and then they showed then a picture of one of her latest concerts, and some huge serpent in the background, and all of the red and the fire, and it truly did look satanic. And so people can be like, oh, what are you talking about? But I'm telling you that God is explicit on being careful who we allow to influence us. And let us be careful of that. Evil communications corrupt good manners, it tells us. And we need to make sure that we are allowing the right people to influence us along the way. Make sure of who the influences are in your children's lives, guys. I mean, that is our job, and we need to be sure and guard that. And then I was reminded of that again, of the right kind of friends. Jesus is healing people, and I'm in Mark chapter 2, and it says that the crowd was so big that they couldn't get to him, and so it tells us, and when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was, and when they had broken it up, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. I mean, that's the kind of friends you want, right? I mean, those are the friends that you want, the friends like what we read in Psalm 35 that are cheering you on when God is definitely, you can see, blessing you and using you. So you are cheering them on and encouraging them, and then you are helping them get to Christ and helping them to have his healing hand upon them. And I don't know. I mean, it's like we just have gotten to the point, and I speak from independent Baptist circles much, okay? That's who I am, and who I've been, for 30 some odd years now. And the thing that I need to understand is that I'm independent. And so independent has the idea that our church is totally autonomous. And so the only two that I'm accountable to is God and my church family. And I like it that way. And I truly believe in the Bible that's the way it ought to be. I am not accountable to the college I went to. I'm not accountable to some administrative corporation somewhere. I'm not accountable to an association that's local. I'm accountable only to God and to the church family. And so now there are a lot of other accountability, my family, things like that. Okay. But, and that's the thing. Every other independent fundamental Baptist church is only accountable to that way. But boy, they like to try to make you accountable to fellowships. They try to make you accountable to a certain, practice of everything. And unless you are walking this fine line like us, then you're not one of us. Well, fine, I don't need to be one of you. I'm independent. I'm the one as a pastor who will give an account for what I do at our church. And so, and really, you guys in your life, you know what? You're accountable to God for your different positions that you have in life. And so let's live in a way that we are going to walk in that accountability and just keep our eyes on the Lord, right? So anyway, I just love that Psalm 35, and it just reminded me that I need to be and not in a shallow way, but truly be a cheerleader for those that God is using, and thank God that I get to see it and be a part of someone's life as God's hand is upon them. So anyway, those are the thoughts that I have today. It's Friday, so if you don't have a church, get to church Sunday, okay? And be a part of it, and be active in telling people about Jesus, and let's get out there and let's be a good representation, a good ambassador for Christ, and let's love each other the way that we should, and let's love God the way that we should, and obey His word like we should, and we'll find God's hand of blessings upon us. So, hey, God bless. Lord willing, we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.